That'll pop in.
Is it unmuted? Can you hear me?
Maybe on delay.
Okay, someone said, should we hear something right now?
Not yet.
You should in the next few minutes. All right, hopefully I'm unmuted and you can hear me. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Dana Coleman. I teach over at Scott Elementary. I teach 5th grade, and we are going to get started on the elementary DBQ for 5th grade, how the Constitution guards against tyranny. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the PowerPoint, so you should be able to see that.
Okay, now let's just see.
How the Constitution guards against tyranny. All right, so the PowerPoint should be on your screen. As I go through the PowerPoint, you can ask questions on today's meet, and Meredith Manus is going to be answering the questions live for you guys. So any questions you have, Meredith is in charge of the curriculum department, social studies, so she is the best person to answer those questions for you guys. All right, so you should have your binder open for you right next to you, because we're going to walk through the binder step by step. So open your DBQ binder and find the tab that says Constitution, and we'll get started right in there. I already told you guys I'm Dana Coleman. I teach at Scott Elementary. Yay. All right, so why should we DBQ? This process really helps students analyze documents and synthesize their thinking and writing. It is vertically aligned to the type of writing that will be expected in history classes at the secondary level as well. So students are going to be seeing this again in middle school and in high school. So really, if we don't do it in 4th and 5th grade, we're doing a disservice to our students, because they're going to see it over and over again in middle school and high school. The core beliefs of the DBQ project are that all students need to learn how to think. Learning to think requires practice. Clear thinking is hard work. We tell our students all the time to dig deeper with their thinking, to go past the words in the text. And this is a great example for students to dig deeper and practice those higher level thinking skills, and then take it a step further by clarifying their thinking with writing. Our goals for today will be to walk through the DBQ binder. So make sure you have your binder out in front of you. We're going to share some best practices and helpful tips. We're going to go through the grading rubric and the vertical alignment of skills. Make sure that you preview all materials before you begin the DBQ process. It is important that you do what your class and what your students are going to need. So make sure you look at vocabulary and the pacing and the timing before you begin the whole process. All right, the first step with the DBQ is the hook. The hook you will find on page 181 in your binder. You'll notice that on the left side of the binder are the teacher answers, and on the right side are the student reproducibles. So the hook exercise is in the binder. The curriculum writers did modify the hook exercise, so you can look at both the binder and Eduphoria and decide which hook exercise best fits your class, or come up with your own. The hook should not last more than 10 to 15 minutes. It kind of gets those students ready to think about what they're about to learn about. They want to leave the hook. You want the students to leave the hook being engaged. So your excitement level is going to help students be excited about the DBQ. Now, 5th grade's DBQ, how the Constitution guards against tyranny, you gotta excite them with that one. So definitely make sure you do a good job with the hook and get them engaged from the beginning. During the hook, during each part, we're going to talk about teacher behaviors and student behaviors. So during the hook, the students will be discussing the hook with pairs and small groups. Think, pair, share. You can begin debating, how does the Constitution guard against tyranny? What is tyranny? Ask questions that relate to real life. And the teacher behaviors, we're going to deliver directions. We're going to facilitate and make sure we're asking probing questions as we go through the process. All right, so now we're ready for the background essay. So the students have, the background essay is very teacher heavy. You're going to really need to make sure that you give all the students the background that they need to be successful later on with the documents. The background essay you can find on page 183. So you want to be looking at that page. You'll notice that some of the vocabulary words are already bolded, but there are definitely more vocabulary words in that article that the teacher can pre-teach before the article. This will be read aloud whole group, and teacher will model incorporating different literacy strategies, and all students must leave with a strong understanding of how the Constitution guarded against tyranny, that good background knowledge. Teacher behaviors, student behaviors during this time. The students are going to be asking questions about what they're reading. This is a great time to practice STAR type strategies with students, because the teacher can pose it, what do we do when we get to an article or a story that is really challenging for us? So when we get to stories that are really hard, what type of strategies can we use to help figure out what the information is trying to tell us? And so this is a time where we can model taking notes. We can model highlighting vocabulary, using context clues. So there's a lot of great strategies that we can model through the background essay. There are STAR formatted questions that follow after the background essay. The STAR questions are on Eduphoria. They're not a part of the DBQ process, but were created for us from the curriculum department. During this time, the teachers are really going to be guiding this lesson. They're going to ask the scaffolding questions. They're going to model these literacy strategies. What do we do when the text is really hard and challenging? And we're going to monitor the students as they're working. Some great strategies to do during this time. You can number the paragraphs and read the first sentence of every paragraph just to get the gist. Then define the vocabulary. You can ask students to read the story backwards, skim the story or backwards, and find any tricky words that they don't know. And it doesn't have to be just the bolded words. Make sure to take the time to really define the vocabulary and take notes as you're going. All right, that's our background essay. Very teacher heavy. If you turn to page 185, there are guided questions that go along with it. It is the teacher reproducible, the teacher answers, and the student reproducible. There are also STAR formatted questions that are on Eduphoria that the curriculum department created. All right, the next step is to understand the question. We are looking at page 187 in your DBQ binder. The question is, how does the Constitution guard against tyranny? And so we need the students to really understand this question before we go any further. So a great idea is to display the question under your document camera. Put the page 179 on the document camera, and that's the front page in the DBQ binder. It has the illustration, it has the question, and the key concepts. Students can then discuss the question and the key vocabulary. The vocabulary that students need to understand before going any further are federalism, separation of powers, checks and balances, big state versus small state. These are the 4 key concepts that will guard against tyranny. Each one of the documents later will go into detail about each one of these. So it's important that students understand the definitions of these before they go further. You want to label and explain to students that buckets will become the body paragraphs. You're going to hear this term buckets quite a bit. The buckets are going to turn into their paragraphs during the writing phase. It may sound strange, but they are going to use this terminology in middle school and high school, so you do want to go ahead and get them used to the word bucketing. Teacher may reduce the buckets to only 3 and not have all 4. And the way that you can do that is ask students to predict which 3 concepts out of all 4 are going to be the most important or guard against tyranny the best. At the end of this, you can do a formative check by having students complete page 187. They're going to rewrite the question in their own words. They're going to label 3 out of the 4 buckets. That way you can reduce the essay to a 5-paragraph essay instead of a 6-paragraph essay. During the understanding the question, the students are going to be, the teacher is going to ask probing questions, model how to dissect and interpret the question, facilitate their predictions about which 4 of the concepts are going to guard against tyranny. The students will be rewriting the question in their own words and predicting the possible answers. Now we're ready for the document analysis part of the DBQ. This is going to begin on page 189. Again, you'll notice on page 188, there are teacher tips, there are content notes. It has great background information for the teacher to help guide the students. Please note that the documents go in ABCD order, but you do not have to follow that exact order during the document analysis process. Eduphoria has a suggested order for you to go from hardest to easiest. So you go from gradual release. So the teacher really models and guides them through the hardest essay. And then by the time they're working independently, it's the easiest essay. So it doesn't have to go in order from A to D. You can use your best teacher judgment or use the Eduphoria suggestion. You're going to introduce and model the document. The teacher is going to guide them through how to analyze a document first. Model taking notes and completing the questions. Each document has 5 questions. The last question is the most important question to answer because it's going to help them in their writing. You don't have to answer all questions on all documents. However, the last question is the most important because it will guide them in their writing later. I highly suggest utilizing the gradual release method, starting heavy with the teacher modeling, then allowing them to break into small groups, partners, and then independently answering the document questions and analyzing the document. Also, the jigsaw method is really helpful, especially with time constraints. You can send different groups to be in charge of different articles, and then they come back and present to the class as the experts of each document. After each document analysis, you want to review the document analysis sheets daily. So you do want to go over the questions during the gradual release model. Even if the students worked in partners, you want to make sure you go back and go over the questions and make sure everyone's on the same page. Also, at the end of the day, I use the STAR strategy questions for each document. I allow the students to look at their notes, the document, and then they answer those STAR type strategy questions. Great way to incorporate reading right into, have your reading grade and social studies grade right there for you with the STAR strategy questions. During this time, the teacher is going to model using the document and model using how to analyze the document and answer the questions that go with it. The students are going to be formulating questions, taking annotated notes. They're going to work those scaffolding questions. They're going to discuss documents with their groups and record their evidence by answering the questions. I'm going to go back real quick to the document analysis. The document analysis is going to take up the large part of your DBQ. You want to make sure that students truly understand each document. Each document goes with each of the key concepts, the separation of powers, federalism, big state versus small state. Each document focuses on each one of those concepts so the students can understand how each concept guards against tyranny. All right, so now students are ready to write their essays, bucketing, and we're going to also talk about a chicken foot. And although those sound like silly vocabulary words, they are the same vocabulary words they're using in middle school and high school. So we did meet last year at the end of the year and talk about what type of terminology middle school and high school is using. And they are using the buckets and the chicken foot and the word thesis. So we do want to make sure we use that terminology as well because they're going to hear it. So bucketing we did at the very beginning when we read the question and analyzed the question. The buckets are going to essentially be the body paragraphs. So they're going to be answering how the Constitution guards against tyranny. And then each body paragraph is going to talk about federalism, separation of powers, etc. So each one of those buckets should have one of those titles. You're going to also label the document that goes with each label. So you're going to find the document that's checks and balances. So document C matches checks and balances. So students need to understand that that's the document they're going to pull evidence from when they're talking about how checks and balances guards against tyranny. The chicken foot is a roadmap for your thesis creation. So you're going to say the Constitution guards against tyranny in 4 ways. And then each way will be labeled on the chicken foot, and each one of those will become a body paragraph as well. You may limit this to 2 or 3 depending on your expectations for your essay. So you may say, ask your students to pick the top 2 or 3 reasons how the Constitution guards against tyranny. The teacher can model how to develop their buckets and sort their documents. They're going to model how to write their thesis statements by using the chicken foot or roadmap. The students are going to be labeling those buckets and sorting the documents into the proper bucket, and they're going to be writing their thesis statement. So they're ready to go with their essay. All right. Some essays and DBQs lend themselves more to a debate or a thrash out. Our DBQ does not lend itself best to a thrash out. However, there are still ways to incorporate it. You can ask students to debate which 3 defenses against tyranny are the most important, or you can even have them debate against each other which one defense is the best against tyranny, that protects against tyranny. So you can incorporate a debate because we all know our 5th graders love to argue and debate with each other. Before you get started on writing the actual essay, you want to review what makes a proficient essay. So if you look on page 199, it has an outline for students, and you can see the outline that the students can use, the student reproducible, and you can find the outline for the paragraphs, the fill-in, the teacher resource, sorry. If you turn to page 200, if you turn to page 200, you can also see a proficient essay, what it should look like. You can actually make copies of this proficient essay and have students rainbow highlight the thesis statements in each essay, the evidence, etc.
They're saying your sound went out. So
That's rude.
Yeah.
All right, they're saying my sound went out, so let's fix this. Do I want to exit?
Yeah, yes, just escape.
Can you hear on here?
Yeah, I was hearing it just fine.
We can still hear it.
Okay.
Okay.
Must have been that pretty good person's.
All right, hopefully, it's okay. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm sorry if some of your sound went out. Yay, technology. All right, now I can't make it big again. I want it to
Go
play.
to present. Up in the top right there. Yeah, right there.
Yay. Okay. So rainbow highlighting has to do with looking at the proficient essay on page 200. And you can rainbow highlight the thesis in each paragraph, the evidence that they pull from the documents. The writing is going to have the student's reason why the defense guards against tyranny, and also document evidence to support their reason why. You can rainbow highlight to show students how to include this in their essay. There are rubrics on Eduphoria. There are outline guides in the teacher's toolkit. If you look at your binder, you can notice in the very back, there's a teacher's toolkit tab. And this has lots of helpful information for the DBQ process as well. You can also look on the Eduphoria writing outlines. There are outlines on Eduphoria as well. All right, rubrics can be found on Eduphoria, also in the DBQ binder, but the rubrics on Eduphoria are the best to use. Here is a screenshot of a rubric found on Eduphoria. It shows you how you can score. You want to look in each body paragraph. If your body paragraph, if you have limited your students to either writing 2 or 3 body paragraphs, then you can take off the 4th body paragraph. And then students should have a conclusion, etc. Vertical skills. Here's the FISD Social Studies Vertical DBQ Skills Alignment. You'll notice at the top it says key vocabulary, the bucketing, the thesis, etc. So you'll notice in elementary school, our expectation is to introduce. So we're introducing the DBQ process. We're introducing the thesis, the roadmaps, how to organize their essays. And then in middle school, they're going to continue to develop and master. And then in high school, these concepts will be mastered. All right, Readers and Writers Workshop. The biggest question, when do we do all of this? I went ahead recently and we were planning out December, and we went ahead and put the DBQ process in. The best suggestion I can give you guys is that the DBQ has reading, writing, and social studies integrated to perfection. You are strongly teaching great reading skills, great writing skills, and great social studies skills. Also, with the 5th grade writing curriculum, we made sure that persuasive essays lined up with the DBQ, because essentially they're writing a persuasive essay of how the Constitution guards against tyranny. So it does line up with the proper writing genre. And during Reader's Workshop, you can incorporate lots of comprehension skills and test-taking strategies and how to analyze articles that are tricky. All of those skills can be properly integrated, reading skills, into the social studies DBQ process. So during that time, Reader's Workshop and Writer's Workshop for that week is all going to be DBQ. And then I see there being enough time at the end of my block for some self-selected reading as well, but it's just going to be a smaller amount of time. Also, we went ahead and used the following week in Writer's Workshop for students to finish writing their writing essays. It just worked out for us that instead of getting into a brand new unit and really starting persuasive writing, it worked out better to allow students to finish writing their essays the week before Christmas. And then when we come back from Christmas, we can go ahead and start our persuasive essay unit with the writing curriculum. So if you follow the curriculum documents, it is easy to incorporate the DBQ process. In 5th grade, we have certain essays that are designated to us because this same binder is in middle school as well. So it's important that we stick to our DBQ. And at the very beginning of the year, you can use Jamestown. So next year when you're planning, think about Jamestown. You don't have to use the whole DBQ. You can pull out certain documents, the background essay, etc. The Constitution is our required DBQ to go through the full process from beginning to end. There's also Harriet Tubman, and again, you can pick and choose parts. You don't have to go through the full process. And also Reconstruction. The background essay is helpful for our students. So you can pick and pull different parts of DBQs. You don't just have to pull the Constitution, but the Constitution is our required full DBQ. All right, we decided to use today's meet for our question answer portion. I know that Meredith is typing away answering questions. And so hopefully she can get them all answered.
Did you talk about the vocabulary videos?
Oh, no. Great. Meredith reminded me that on Eduphoria, they have incorporated vocabulary videos. So when I was talking about introducing the question, and the 4 documents have federalism, separation of powers, checks and balances, big state versus small state, the curriculum writers added videos for each one of those key concepts. So that's a great way for students to understand and have a further background knowledge of those vocabulary words before they go through the DBQ process.
Do you want to pull up Euphoria and show them what's loaded in there? They're asking me about like where to find the star questions.
Sure. They can see my screen, so everything I pull up, they can see.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to take you guys through Eduphoria so you can see all the documents in Eduphoria. As usual, you click on elementary, 5th grade, social studies. The DBQ is in the second 9 weeks. And then you'll see Constitution DBQ. You do want to make sure that you give them some more background knowledge and teach the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and the checks and balances before you do the Constitution DBQ. Then when you click on the DBQ, they have a great scope and sequence lined up for you already. They have your 5 days outlines with suggestions. They have it into 6 days, but you can modify it into 5 days as needed. And you can see possible day 4, possible day 5, depending on how many days you outline for it. We chose to use the week before the last week of school over Christmas break, and it just fit in perfectly. Down at the very bottom, I'm going to pull up some of the documents that you'll be able to pull up as well. All right, so these are the star formatted questions. They go along with each document. So you see the background essays, questions 1 through 6, document A, document B questions, document C, document D questions, and then the conclusion, number 14 and 15, go with all the documents and background essays. This is great to plan ahead and send to the print shop. Take note that there are blank pages at the bottom. We accidentally printed the blank pages. So when you send it to the print shop, it just is the first 2 pages that you need to print. The next one I'm going to click on is Frisco DBQ training. This is another PowerPoint from the DBQ company that goes through the project, the core beliefs, and how to go through the DBQ process and use the binders. Here's the 5th grade DBQ unit suggested outline, all laid out nicely for you. Great suggestions. There are also keys, and you can find this information in your binder as well. It also laid out vocabulary, key vocabulary. There's the key to the STAR questions. I'm not going to pull up the key, but just so you know, there are our teacher answers. I'm going to pull up the vocabulary videos that I mentioned earlier. And you'll notice they have the 4 links to each vocabulary video. Easy. Here's the rubric that we mentioned for grading. This is in Word, so you can go in and change it as well and edit it to your needs. It looks a little bit daunting at first, but once you get used to the rubric, it's really quick and easy to grade the DBQ essays. The middle school teachers use pretty much the same rubric as well. And my husband teaches 7th grade Texas history, and it used to take him hours to grade DBQ, but now that he's used to the rubric, it just flies by because he knows what to look for. So it becomes a lot easier once your eyes train to the rubric in their documents. Here's the vertical alignment of the DBQ process, so you can see what middle school is doing and what high school is doing and their expectations, and how it's important that we introduce it because middle school is they're ready to take it a step further and develop the skills. So we need to make sure we do our job to prep them for social studies in middle school, because social studies is a big jump for those middle schoolers because they're used to having it such a small period of time in elementary school that they have a really hard time sometimes in middle school with a full class of social studies. This is another grading sheet. It's very similar to the other one, but on this class grading one, you can put all the students' names on one sheet of paper. And then it's very similar to the checkoff sheet. Did they have a baby thesis for each paragraph? Did they have evidence for each one of their paragraphs? Did they have their own argument for each paragraph? They've also included the Jamestown background reading. Here are some great proficient essays for the Constitution that was written by a student. So here's another example of a proficient essay. Great to show students what they're working towards. And then here's a writing outline. So after they've analyzed all 4 of the documents, they've filled their buckets, and they're ready to start writing, here's a great graphic organizer to get students started to be able to transfer into their essay. So you'll notice there's the introduction at the top. They need to state a grabber. They need to give some background knowledge, use that background essay. Then they state their thesis. The Constitution guards against tyranny by blank, blank, and blank. Then each one of those will turn into a baby thesis. The Constitution guards against tyranny by separation of powers. What evidence did they pull from the document? Then they need to make their own connection and put it into their own words, how it guarded against tyranny. They'll do that for each one of their body paragraphs. And then at the end, they'll do a conclusion, restating the main idea, restating the thesis, essentially. So this is great to get students into the format of the essay. Anything we can do to help them be more successful in middle school and high school. And that is what you can find on Eduphoria for the DBQ. Along with the binder, lots of great resources. If we want to take a minute and look at the back of the binder, the teacher's toolkit. I guess we can show me now. If I know how to. All right. Okay, so if you look in the back of the binder, there's a teacher's toolkit, and you can flip through here and see more information about the hook exercise, the background essay, the questions, the document analysis, the bucketing, etc. So there's also rubrics and scoring guides in the back. So you can kind of flip through there and see all the resources. Some of the new binders also have a literacy strategies tab, which is awesome, incorporating those literacy strategies into our DBQ process. Also in the very back, there's another tab for color visuals or those transparencies, but they have the color pictures. So the regular DBQ binder has the black and white pictures, but in the back, they have colored visuals that you can put on the screen. in the toolkit in the very back are some outlines. So there's the outline on Eduphoria that students can use, but if you turn in the teacher toolkit part to page 49, but there's one for the Constitution specifically. I don't know what page it's on here.
No. There's a different page numbers.
So in the very back of the teacher's toolkit, you'll see the outline where it has the grabber, the background, and it has fill in the blank for the thesis statement. So that's helpful. You can use this or the one that's on Eduphoria. Yay. Okay. Meredith is going to stay on today's meet for a little while longer. So if you have any questions for her, feel free to ask her. Yay to our first webcast. Great participation. We enjoyed it. Think that's it. Yay. Y'all have a great afternoon.